Okay, today we're going to review graphing perpendicular and parallel lines, given the equation for a line and a point. So parallel lines we know have the same slope. So here's a line, and here's a point. If I want to write the equation for the line parallel to this, going through this line, through this point, I know the slope is 2, I know this point. So I'm going to use the point slope form. Remember, that's y minus the y coordinate of your point equals the slope times parentheses x minus the x coordinate of my point. So that's y minus my y coordinate is 3. My slope is 2 because it's the same as my other slope. Well, unfortunately for you, I'm not always this nice, and I don't always give them to you in slope-intercept form. Sometimes I might give it to you like this. First thing I need to do then is convert to slope-intercept form. That's y equals mx plus b. So I move the 4x to the other side by subtracting 4x, and now I'm dividing everything by 2. My slope is -2 this time. I like fractions, so I'm going to leave that as 9/2. That's 4.5. For those of you that like decimals, in this case, I don't care that much. With slopes, easiest to leave as fractions because it's easiest to graph when they're fractions. So now I just write my point slope. Now, because it's minus -1, that's +1. My slope is the same as this. And it's +5 because it's minus -5. We're going to talk about perpendicular ones. And I'm going to give you the equation in about the strangest form I can think of. This is an equation for a line. It's not in any of our particular forms, but it's still the equation for a line. So I still need to put it into slope-intercept form. So I'll start by subtracting 7. I'll get all my numbers without an x or y together. I'll then move 2x to the other side. Yep, here's my point that it's going through. Forgot to list that. So here's my equation, here's my point. I'm moving it to slope-intercept form because I need to know the slope. This is going to be a line perpendicular, which means the slope is not the same, it's opposite reciprocal. I'm going to divide by -5 here to get the slope. And we'll talk about opposite reciprocal once we have the slope. So none of this opposite reciprocal matters until I have the slope. So on this equation, my slope is 2/5. My perpendicular, I'm going to abbreviate it perp. My slope is the opposite, so that means I change the sign. It's a positive, so it becomes a negative. And the reciprocal means I flip the fraction. If it's 2, remember that 2 is equal to 2/1. So its opposite reciprocal is -1/2. Okay? So if it's just a number, put it over 1 and then flip it. So now that I've got my slope here, back to the one I was working on. Now that I've got my slope, I will write my equation. Y, again, it's minus -8, so that's a plus. And this one is -1. I almost wrote a plus. Now, I've left all of these in point slope form. I didn't give directions on the worksheet that you had to switch it to slope intercept form, so point slope form is fine. Okay? And I've talked briefly about switching to standard form. So if I've given an equation and I want to switch it to standard form. Remember, standard form is ax plus by equals c. Where a, b, and c are all integers. That means whole numbers or they're negatives. This one, I've got all integers. I just need to move the 2x to the other side by subtracting 2x from each side. And then there's just a 3 left on that side. I'm in standard form. This one will be a little harder. These are fractions. These are not integers. I want to start by multiplying them so that they become integers. So if I multiply this by 5, that will make this 2. Okay, 2/5 times 5 is 2. My denominators cancel out. The problem is if I multiply this by 5, I have to multiply the 1/4 by 5 and the y by 5. Okay, so I'm having to multiply all 3 terms, and 5 isn't going to make this fraction go away. So I'm going to multiply by the common denominator of the two of them, which is 20. I'm going to multiply by 5 and 4. So I'm going to multiply the 20 by all 3. I'm essentially distributing, and yes, I am distributing across an equal sign because my equal sign is in parentheses. 2/5 times 20. 20 over divided by 5 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. So I'm taking my fraction, I'm remembering its division. 20 times 1/4 is 20 divided by 4, that's 5. Now I've got rid of all of my fractions. I just need to move the 8x to the other side by subtracting it from each side. And my standard form equation is -8x plus 20y equals 5. And that is a quick review of graphing lines. Hopefully you remember how to graph them. But this is writing equations for perpendicular, parallel lines, and standard form.